There's a million tasks and things they want to get focused on. And productivity can be the ultimate hack. Focusing your effort on knowing what to do to create results is the key to long-term success. In today's episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message, I'm super excited to introduce you to Noreen Music. She is an incredible person that I met through one of my clients, and she is an expert all about productivity and is going to help us today talk about the best practices on productivity for entrepreneurs. Noreen, welcome to our show. I'm really excited to have you here today as our guest.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, I want to know, first off, how come we struggle so much with productivity? Because we bite off more than we can chew. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this first piece of the puzzle. So let's kick us off right there.
Yeah, it's a really great question, Christine. A lot of folks struggle with productivity for a number of different reasons, but probably the biggest reason that I come across in my work is the fact that people don't always apply their energy in the right direction or their attention in the right direction. So, we have a limited amount of time in the day when our brains are really proactive and we can get a lot of work done and be in flow, as they say. And we can tend to be distracted by other things, either internal things, external things, and we miss that window of opportunity of using our energy in the right way.
I think this is really interesting because so often we set unfair expectations of ourselves that we're going to hit the ground running and be like quantum super productive all day long. And the truth is that we're not. And each of us have different rhythms. And I love that you talk about energy right at the beginning, because you need to know what works best for you. When are you the most productive? And when are you going to get your focused time? Because not all priorities are equal. Not all actions create the same speed. And knowing yourself, what I'm hearing, is key to ultimately seeing consistency in your productivity. Is that fair?
That is very fair. And absolutely, a lot of the work that I do with my clients is identifying the different types of work that they do, and then identifying when their brain is best to do that work. So it's matching the task with that right time. Not everybody's a morning person. I don't get up at 4 a.m. I like to have a bit of a slower morning, but then I know when my brain works better for creative work or more kind of numbers work, admin work, accounting kind of things. And so when we tie our tasks properly to our time, when our brains have that energy or in that mode, like for instance, I will do phone calls or reading articles and things like that later in the day when my brain is a little bit more tired. And so really managing our energy helps us manage our attention and our time.
I want to know, this is interesting. I just had a thought that's popped into my brain, and it's really understanding, how do you know when you're not being productive? Because sometimes we think the result is the measure of productivity, but I'm wondering, listening to you saying maybe that's not in fact accurate, because we know that there's high costs of non-productive work, but how do you really know when you're classified as this is not productive and I should maybe take a pause, reset, or in fact maybe come at this another day?
Well, I think there's different ways to measure if you're being unproductive, but certainly if you're not tackling those high priority tasks. We all have in a day at least 3 or 4 things that potentially we absolutely need to get done. And if those things aren't getting done because we're spending too much time on that proverbial busy work, those things that don't really move the needle in our business, they're really not things that we should be focusing on. If we find by the end of the day we've worked really hard, but we have very little to show for it, we haven't accomplished much, Uh, we could also be getting feedback from others around us, from team members, that we're not meeting deadlines, or we're falling short on some team projects. So there are a number of ways that we get feedback from either ourselves or the people around us that we are missing the mark.
And I think one of the most important parts of that is knowing what the expectations are. And so, as the audience is following us along here, I want you to stop and think about, what does the success measure look like for the tasks that you're setting yourself? Are you focused on things that are moving you closer to the results, and checking in with other stakeholders about serving and meeting those expectations? Because the truth is, all of us bite off more than we can chew. And I think it's Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn who constantly say, we underestimate what we can do in the long term, but we overestimate what we can do in the short term. And that can mean that we get sucked into that busy work that you talk about, and yet really knowing what moves the needle to create the result as you have defined it is critical. And I think there's a great insight that says, check, you are on track, and take course corrections along the journey. That is really an important part of the result achievement goal line you're shooting for. So what are some of the pitfalls that we fall into with regards to productivity as you see it, and the people that you're working with to support?
Yeah, so I find that a lot of the folks that I work with, uh, we don't get taught sort of the basic work practices. We don't necessarily get taught how do we set up our calendar properly? How do we create a task management system that really is categorized well, prioritized well, that works for our business or our industry or our career? How do we work with our email? Email is a massive communication tool. And I would say at least 90% of people that I come in contact with don't know how to use email well. And it's all of these work practices that, if we're not doing them efficiently, or we just don't understand how to let automation and the technology that we use every day to help us to be more productive, efficient, eliminate sort of mundane, repetitive tasks, then we can struggle. We struggle more than we need to with our work practices. And so that's a big part of what I do with people, is understanding how they're working, teaching them how to use these systems and these tools to their advantage, so that we can create a strong foundation that they can then dance on top of, or play on top of, or get more creative or innovative in their business, grow their business. So they're not worrying about just those basic foundational practices of how they're working.
I just want to pause here because I think this was such a gold nugget. You are not taught how to set up a scalable system and how best to use the tools to their best advantage. And I think that that is such an important point. And I'm so glad you brought it to the table, because I think many of us in the world of solopreneurs, consultants, professionals who come into business, we think that we should just know how to do this. And as you become all of the hats, especially if you're a solopreneur, it's easy to start to drown. And it's easy to start to think, why is this so hard? And it's like, well, it's hard because you've never been taught it, or you've never worked with somebody who says there's a better way. And I think the interesting thing, I know when I'm working with my clients, I said, none of us do this the same. We may have similar visions, we may have similar end goals, and we may have similar strategies that we're using to get there, but how we do it differs. And I love that you are bringing to the table this expertise in a professional capacity that says, let's lay the foundations. Because so much of what you and I connected to as peers is, if you can lay the foundations and you understand how things are sequential and can be built in a sequence to create predictable results in less time with less effort, it's so important to slow down and do the work now to create how you can elevate to the next level. So what do you think, when you're approaching somebody, are some best practice tips that we should be paying attention to see the biggest impact today?
So I'm going to say this one thing, and I say this, and I teach this workshop about it. It's related to email management. And this is a very, I know, revolutionary comment, and a lot of people are shocked when I say it. But your email is an inbox. It's where new emails come to land. That's it. Your email inbox is not a task list. It's not a calendar. It's not a follow-up list. It is an inbox. And I teach a system on how to get it cleaned up and how to actually use the folders along the side and processing folders, etc. But when our email inboxes are clogged and we spend 2 hours, 3 hours a day scrolling endlessly up and down, frantic about deadlines that we're missing, worried that we haven't responded to clients or team members or our superiors in timely ways, we waste so much time. Email control is the number one thing that I work with my clients on, how to clean out that inbox and get it set up and get them using email as the incredible tool that it is. But right now, so many people are incredibly bogged down by it and are using it improperly.
I got to tell you, so if you feel called out by the fact that you may have hundreds of thousands of emails in your inbox, the time is to recognize that that is not the only option. And in fact, you can really impact your professionalism, because we do know that business moves at rapid speed. And if you're someone like myself who works at a really global level, emails are coming in at all of hours of the day. And I do not run notifications on my phone. This is one of my internal processes. I said, I know what disciplines I need to work on during the day. I don't get hijacked by notifications coming in. However, you have to have a very clear strategy of prioritizing what needs to get done, what moves the needle. And I love this because I know for myself, my goal is 50 or less emails in my inbox, which may still seem like a lot, but it is all of the current things I must respond to in any given week. And I love that you talk about the management of it, using folders, getting clear on setting your next steps, and ensuring that you're responsive, because your professional image is influenced by how you are managing the details, how you care, and that really can build your reputation. It's a bit of a hidden power, in my opinion. Would you agree?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It works both ways. If you are floundering and drowning in your emails, it impacts your credibility. And if you are on top of things and that go-to person that your team or your company or you as the leader, people can rely on you because you know what is going on. You're communicating well, you're following up well, you're delegating well, you're using that email as that powerful tool the way it's intended. It changes the game.
One of the most benefits I hear when I listen to you is talking about not only being professional, but feeling in control and being perceived as in control. And that's a really important trust builder for anybody who is building a business and working to establish credibility, both short and long term. It's, can you be depended on? And so I love that you talk about this as a habit as the biggest, most important place to start. I'm curious, this is just a thought that's come into my brain, is when we talk about email and the fact that business does run 24/7, do you think people need to be on their emails all of the time? Or how do you talk about your best practices of managing the emails day to day? Because it's easy to let that be the thing that derails you. Should it be something that you are letting do that? Or do you have a different way to approach it?
Generally, my answer is no. You do not need to live inside of your email inbox. Checking your emails 2 to 3 times a day is generally sufficient. And many of my clients are shocked when I first tell them that. They're used to living in that email box. There's a fear that they're going to miss something important or an emergency. And I always say, if you are in a car accident, you don't email the hospital, you call them. If there's an emergency, someone will be picking up the phone and calling you. Email is not an appropriate way to get an urgent or an emergency message. And so checking emails 2 or 3 times a day is more than sufficient to stay on top of your work, to, deal with things that come in that are, more of a urgent or important nature. And then you have the rest of your time to be in work blocks, be in meetings, and do the work that you actually need to do without being just stuck in your email inbox. Because let's face it, it comes into your email inbox is generally the will of others. It's generally what other people need. Is it your priorities necessarily? Not always. And if you're always spending your time in your email inbox, wasting time in many times, you're wasting time with the priority of others, not your own.
I think that's such a gold nugget. And I think it will also help all of us just take the air out of the stress bubble that says, I need to be always on. And this is a really important, I always say to people, it's not just about building the business, it's about building the life you want. And it is clear that you can set the expectation saying the standard in which I hold myself to is that I will respond within 4 hours unless you get a message that indicates there might be another reason why that's not the standard.
Yeah.
Outside of that, close down the email to focus on your priorities so that you can truly deliver at the very highest level, whatever service it is that you are committed to helping guide somebody to in the result measure, and recognize that email is not, on both sides of this equation, the most important strategy, tool, or technique to handle urgent matters. Pick up the phone, have the conversation. And I always work with my clients and say, email is something that I will respond to within 12 to 24 hours. If it is more critical, ping me a message in a certain platform and say, it's urgent, can you assist? In which case I will do my best to prioritize it. That is how I could be responsive to a crisis, but it's not the way you want to manage your day-to-day relationships. Don't manage crisis to crisis. I think what we're hearing from Noreen is absolutely plan, have a strategy, have a structure so that you can stay in control of delivering the service that is predictable, high quality, and a reputation builder for yourself and the people that you serve. So I want to ask this. I ask this to every entrepreneur in this platform because each of us build our business differently. For you, what is working right now to amplify your message and see growth in your business? Because I'm sure lots of people need your services, but what works for you to build your message?
So for me, Christine, I think the biggest thing is speaking, either in virtual stages or actual stages. I spoke just last week at a 2-day employee conference. There were 400 people in the room. And when I get the ability to be up on a stage and to share my message and my passion and some of my knowledge with, that many people at once, that for me really works. I get lots of interest, lots of, looks on my website and hopefully, clients out of that as well. But speaking for me would probably be one of the number one things. The other thing is also being very collaborative. Right now I'm working with, 2 other owners, entrepreneurs, and we're collaborating on different things that we're going to be launching into the market. And so I find that I am not the end all be all of everything. I don't know everything. And so, people in your network collaborating, I think opens your network to their network and also strengthens you as an individual. So I love speaking. I love collaboration. And I also think just having a really good, solid website and a social media presence is key.
What I hear about this, and I love that. Thank you for sharing what's working with you. And that's actually in itself a productivity guideline, because we talk about the need to always build an audience of buyers. It's one of the fundamentals that you hear about here on this platform. It's one of the key things that I lead my clients through and said, you must build an audience of buyers. You need to get in front of many more people. And it doesn't need to be a one-to-one conversation with every person that you connect to. Getting in front of audiences through speaking, collaborating, and expanding your reach into other people's networks and reciprocating can be in itself another productivity hack, so that when you do invest in those time blocks for phone calls, follow-ups, chit chat, and coffee with real people in real life, you're in the right room. And getting into the right room is the ultimate accelerator. Noreen, how do people find more about your services and connect to you out of this episode?
So the best way to connect with me is on my website at organizemyspacecalgary.com. I have a ton of free resources. I really believe in giving the best of what I've got. So my DIY page has a ton of resources that people can grab. And yeah, that is the best place to find me. I'm also on social media. I love Instagram. I'm on Facebook, on LinkedIn. So, but my website would be number one.
I love it. Guys, this is it. If you are looking to improve your productivity, it starts with you. It starts with the commitment of recognizing that building structures will help you not only better manage things, build your reputation, it will help you feel more in control. And that is ultimately how you can amplify your message and get in front of more people and help people move from curiosity to being a paid client. Noreen, thank you for being our guest expert today. Everyone, I encourage you to connect with her and really take her insights around email to heart so that you can truly have a better journey on your journey of entrepreneurship. Thanks for being here, guys. We will see you all on our next episode. Until then, be sure to subscribe, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. Take care, everybody.